Okay, you've seen the one with the unprepared straight off the bush. Here's one that I prepared by dipping the whole lot in PVA and then putting just a sprinkle on it after. Now the trouble with this method is when you leave the end sticking out, like this was an opening, the base of the stem when it's dried will easily break off. So you've got a choice. You can either wind, and I use garden wire, round it with a bit of stiff wire in the middle, or you can break the twig off and drill a hole and put some stiff wire up the middle. However, there are, I think, better methods. The best method I found by far at the moment is to use a piece of stiff wire and some garden trailing wire, which is really cheap and easy to use, and I just do a bit of this to wind the wire up at there and snip it off. Then I just wind branches on as I want them. A bit more coming on, and I'll show you the finished product in a minute. So it's what roughly the finished product looks like, in place on top of my bit of Celotex boarding which I use to prop the trees up. The trouble is, this green wire here is a bit thick for some of the offshoots, and what I do is I use enamel wire, which is this stuff, and I'll show you what that. Okay, I've just twisted on enamel wire, which is the stuff that I showed you before, which is very thin. Also, because it's insulated wire, you don't have trouble with rusting. What's good about the enamel wire, and you've got different colours, there's a bit of copper colour wire, doesn't matter which you use at the moment. The trouble is, a lot of people get too fussy about the structure of their tree, I think, at this stage. I just do a rough structure and then I go from here. But you can see the general effect is all sprouting, and I'll show you the next step, which is to coat every branch with. One of the other techniques I've used, I'll show you alongside the branch that's drying, or tree that's drying, is the one of those side shoots off of that bamboo flower, which I've wired up, but you can see it's a little bit wonky. So what I do with that is I just take one of these, which is the original one, and I use the enamel wire again to wire it up and strengthen it. So you can see there that it's really easy to do that. And what happens then is, you can see I'm just going to make sure that's nice and tight. I've also, as you notice, got a nice bottom, which means I can now wire the fixing point up. Which is now like that. What's good about this is I can now bend this little twig so it's nice and upright as a tree should be, and it stays in position ready, and I can just snip that bit off. It's a bit high, and I've now got a nice straight tree, and I've put this in alongside it so you can see what it's going to look like. Fairly long bit of stem in there, just wind the wire around so it's nice and firm, bend it straight. We've now got this alongside it there, and you can see then I've got a nice straight tree, and I'll amend the other one before. Okay, here's the trees wired up, and I've coated them all with some PVA, and doesn't matter whether it's neat or diluted. I've let it dry for a quarter of an hour, 20 minutes, ready for the next stage. So literally I just give everything a coat of PVA like that, which just helps the stuff stick to it, and you'll see why in a minute. So just roughly like this, just spray it, just paint it on, takes 5 minutes, and I quite enjoy doing it. What you want to do is just keep your PVA over the bit of insulation, so down the stem. But doesn't matter if you miss a branch, I'll show you why in a minute. And then doesn't matter if they go out of shape at this point, because we'll rectify that in a minute. Now what I do is I just leave that to dry for half an hour or so. So I'll come back to you in a minute. Okay, the next stage is to cover everything with PVA, and you can see I'll mix it up fairly watery in there, so that when I paint it on, it just really rolls on. And all I do, because the PVA is fairly okay, I just do that. Really simple, make sure there's not too many blobs, and just lay it on, because the PVA helps it to stick. I'll just show you what I do down here, where the trunk's going to be a little bit thicker, is I just let it roll down to the bottom, which forms a really nice foot for the tree. I'll just show you what that looks like. So down here I just lay it on a bit thicker. If I need to, I'll just add a bit of water to it, which helps it flow a lot better, but don't need to bother. Now this one here, all I need to do is just do the base of it, make me a nice firm footing for it, a bit round the outside. I'll just finish these off and I'll show you the completed tree. Okay, just to give you an idea of what I'm doing, it's a technique that I have used a lot and learned a lot from. You get this pool at the bottom, which is the result of the I use Koven adhesive because I find it a lot better than polyfiller. So I'll put it in the top and let it roll down. As the set goes off, so it hangs on more and more. So all you've got to do is just keep on doing it until you're happy with the thickness, which I think is up to you. So you can see this one here on the end I'm fairly happy with, not bad. And this one here I'm not too unhappy with. This one here is a bit thin, so I'll just let the adhesive go off a bit, and then I'll add another layer onto the firm base. Okay, there's our trees all dried out. There's a bit of black paper so you can see the shape. Don't worry and don't be too fussy about making sure everything's covered. Wait until it's set, maybe apply a bit more, and you can always use a brush with a bit of water in it to smooth off the bark if you want. Okay, I'll let that dry and then I'll paint it. And there's a bit more distant picture so you can see all three of the trees all ready for drying out. Get an idea of what the tree looks like from above, and I'll come back to you when I'm finished painting. Okay, it's trees with the first base coat of colour. See, I've chosen grey. Don't need to be too fussy about it because we're going to do other bits and pieces. We're going to add more colour later, but it's quite good I think to choose a dark colour for the first base coat, so that later it shows through when you overpaint it. Now I'll let that dry thoroughly. You'll notice that when it dries, the wire in the middle tree will probably be much firmer. You've got a much firmer looking and feeling tree. Okay, teased off a bit of polyfibre, just like this. On the big tree I can put it on fairly generously like this, and I just take a dab of PVA, put it on like that, don't have to be too fussy about it, so it's just on like that. And all I do is take some water and let it soak in, and when that dries it stick quite permanently to each of the branches, and the white, as you know, will dry. Okay, there's the trees with all the fern on. You can see that it's still got a lot of the white PVA showing. Just to give you an idea of how I put it on, you notice on the smaller trees I've used less of the fibre. And by the way, I haven't mentioned that Jackie at Scenics, that's CYNEICS, also sells a lovely range of stuff, and I also use her black fibre mat, which I think gives a much nicer effect. Okay, on the smaller trees you can see I've not used any PVA, so I just need to stick it. And what I do is I use the spray mount from 3M. All I do is that. You notice it goes white. Don't worry about the other tree behind it, because it will help all that to stick as well. I leave the spray mount on. And then what I can do, I can start doing a little bit of sprinkling while that's still slightly wet. So it's doing two things, and I'll just show you what it looks like then. You can see the tree starting to take shape. Don't worry about it going on the floor or wherever, because we can soon sweep that up. To finish the bits around this side, yeah, I just toss it on like that. I have to say this, the 3M mounts, and you'll see what it looks like. That's dried off a bit. Give it another spray, and maybe then knock off the excess.